The awards season for 2022 is running hot, but for some reason I haven't seen Jordan Peele's Nope nominated for any of the major awards anywhere. Which I find surprising, because not only is Nope my favorite film from last year, but I think it's also one of the smartest. Which is not really a word we often use for film. We use emotional, thought-provoking, and entertaining, but smart is a whole different quality. So what does it mean? Well, to me, a smart film is a film with a certain self-awareness. A film that knows exactly what it is and what it is doing, that acknowledges narrative expectation, and more importantly, dares to play with it in interesting ways. This is something that Nope and Jordan Peele in general do a lot, but there is one scene in Nope that does it especially well, and that is the absolutely terrifying barn scene. On the surface, the barn scene is nothing too special. The ominous darkness, lack of score, and editing make it immediately clear that we're watching yet another horror sequence, not unlike the dozens we've seen before. But the barn scene has an interesting twist. It's also a complete narrative misdirection by the filmmaker. The scare is not actually real. It's simply the kids from next door pulling an elaborate prank. It's a choice that might easily run the risk of making the entire sequence feel void, but doesn't because of how well Peele is attuned to narrative expectation. As we step into the barn scene, Peele understands exactly what the audience is expecting. We've already had one scene where we got a brief glimpse of the UFO, so logically now we're going to learn something new about it. And when you're first watching this scene, that's exactly what it feels like we're doing. First we saw the UFO, so it's only natural that now we're gonna meet the aliens. OJ and Emerald are obsessed with getting a shot of their mysterious visitors, so maybe this will be their chance. The scene is so clever because it matches our narrative expectation completely. It only works so well because there's nothing about it to suggest that what we're seeing isn't the real story. So even though the scene actually has nothing to do with the larger film, you're not left feeling frustrated as much as impressed at the ease with which the magic trick was delivered. But the twist is not the reason why I think Nope is smart. Rather, it's what the scene tells us about Nope as a film, and by extension, Jordan Peele as a filmmaker. Because the barn scene has a flip side. It's great, but it's also completely useless. Narratively speaking. Narratively speaking, a scene is always meant to do at least one of two things: advance the plot or deepen the characters. If it doesn't, your story isn't moving or interesting. But the barn scene does neither, which might sound like a pretentious film critic thing to say, but how many $70 million films do you see spending 5 minutes of their runtime and presumably tens of thousands of dollars on a scene that doesn't advance the film in any way? How many even 1-minute scenes like this do we have in Avengers Endgame, despite that film being almost an hour longer? So the question becomes, why have it in the first place? What is the reason? And the answer is rather interesting. There is no reason, narratively. But that doesn't mean that the scene doesn't service the audience in other ways. For one, it's probably the most thrilling alien scene I've seen since the one in Signs. Even if the eventual outcome turns out to be nothing, in the moment, when you still don't know its true nature, it's pure excellence. And for Peele, that's enough. With Nope, he isn't bothered with creating the sort of closed reality where everything you're watching has to matter. He knows that you know that you're watching a film. So instead of wasting time convincing you that every scene is somehow essential to the plot or characters, he'd rather target that energy towards entertaining you in the most interesting ways possible, even if it means narratively wasting a scene. What the barn scene fundamentally says is that Peele isn't interested in making films as we traditionally understand them to be, but instead in creating a sort of shared understanding with the audience that what they're watching is not meant to be a cohesive and complete product, but rather a canvas on which he paints experiences and ideas. It's an understanding that Peele's filmmaking model is perhaps uniquely fit for, because it demands that the audience trust him completely. Avengers couldn't sustain a 5-minute scene that doesn't advance the plot or deepen the characters, because those two things are all the film gives us. But Peele gives us something else. He gives us that wink that says he knows what you think you're watching.
I saw that Navy clip. Couldn't really see him though. Could have been better.
He isn't at all concerned with drawing a line between actual reality and the reality of his film. Rather, he thrives in that gray area that draws attention to the film's artificiality that other films usually try their best to avoid. Peele knows that when you make your audience go through a 5-minute scene that ultimately has no purpose for the larger narrative, they have to know that you have their best interests at heart. The characters in Nope are constantly making references to real life to enforce this understanding. They are acknowledging that they're working from the exact same place of understanding as you are. When OJ spots the alien behind his shoulder or the one hovering above his car, he doesn't react like a normal horror character would, but rather he reacts like we would.
Nope.
Not for the sake of comedy, although it is hilarious, but to once again signal to the audience that they are perfectly in tune with a filmmaker who knows what they want. That's what the barn scene in Nope made me understand. That this isn't a film trying to sell you on the realest UFO experience or the grittiest family drama, but rather a film that understands that the value of a good movie doesn't always come from being structurally cohesive or deeply heartfelt and emotional. Not that that's bad, but the film form allows for countless ways to entertain. And one of them is the filmmaker sitting himself down next to the audience and saying, I know what you want to see from a story like this because I'm you. I'll give you the mystery. I'll give you the action. And in this one scene, I'll even give you the thrill of meeting aliens, even if it does absolutely nothing for the rest of the film. And all you have to do in exchange is admit to yourself what you already know, that you're watching a film. That despite everything it might be saying under the surface, you're still here first and foremost to be entertained. That is a rare conversation to be having with a filmmaker. And I think that the fact that it was even initiated is what makes Nope the smartest film of 2022. Thanks for watching.